As somebody who makes lists all the time, I always like to think that everything is in order. There's one that's the best, the second best, the third best, the fourth best. But sometimes on Drag Race, that isn't always the case. Welcome to Wild Spear, where today we'll be talking about 9 times that there should have been a double win in a maxi challenge. Sometimes on Drag Race there are double wins. We've seen queens lip sync for the win on something like Daytona Wins #1 on season 14, and we also saw just true double wins on things like Snatch Game season 7 with Kennedy and Ginger. Today I'll be talking about the times when I think there were 2 queens that were equally good in the challenge and both of them deserved a win. However, in real life we only got 1 winner for that challenge. And I don't think this is a case where there were 2 queens who did great, but one of them was a clear winner. In this case, these were equally good winners that both could have won the challenge. The very first one that I thought about when I thought of making this video was the Diva Worship Challenge from Season 11. On Season 11, the Diva Worship Challenge I think is one of the greatest train wreck challenges we've ever had in the history of Drag Race. We had the amazing Team Britney and the disastrous Team Mariah. What I was thinking about when I thought of creating this video was, what if we had an entire group win the challenge? And I think most of the people in this group did a great job. There were just a couple exceptions. However, I think there were 2 queens who could have feasibly won this challenge. They were Nina West, who was the sort of moderator for the challenge, and she was the one that ended up winning. And then there was Miss Vanjie, who had the out of control but somehow instantly iconic performance as the preacher who converted 2 of the queens to Britney stans. Miss Vanjie's lines here are endlessly quotable and are something that we still talk about in the Drag Race fandom. So for this reason, I think both of these queens could have won this challenge. Now, I know some people are going to be talking about the runways here and how the runways could be the thing that decides who wins the challenge. And yeah, that should be how it is, but this is Drag Race, and I don't know if that would ever be the actual deciding factor. However, for this individual case, this was the fringe runway, and I think both Vanjie and Nina had okay looks, and there wasn't really one that was better than the other. So for this reason, this is the first double win on my list. Daytona Wins #1 was one of the episodes that I was talking about earlier where we had 2 queens lip syncing for the win, with Diabetti and Lady Camden. Daytona Wins #2, which was on season 15, was not the case. Instead, we had 1 queen go home every single week during season 15 because that's what RuPaul wanted to do after the non-eliminations of season 14. However, if there was a case where we could have had 2 queens lip sync for the win or a double win, that would have been on Daytona Wins #2. We had Malaysia Babydoll Foxx and Mistress Isabelle Brooks, who took kind of the main roles in this challenge. We had Mistress, who was the mistress who shows up at the funeral, and then Malaysia Babydoll Foxx, who was the preacher at the funeral. Both of these queens excelled and had amazing performances in this challenge, and I really couldn't tell who the win was going to go to when I watched at the time. Malaysia and Mistress both had okay runways that week. This was the Puffer Please runway. So I don't think that should have been a deciding factor. Instead, we should have had a double win just like we did the season before with Malaysia and Mistress. The next couple challenges that I'll be talking about are all versions of Snatch Game that we had across the different seasons and franchises. This is actually from season 15 as well, where we had the first ever double Snatch Game, where we had half of the queens perform in one and half perform in the other. The first group, I think the standout was either Marsha or Mistress Isabelle Brooks. I did a poll on my channel and you all chose Marsha as the other winner. I feel like at the time Mistress was the one who seemed like a bigger star, but at the end of the day, Neither of these queens won the challenge because the overall win went to Lucy LaDuca for her amazing performance as Joan Rivers in the second Snatch Game. And while Lucy was far and away the winner of that overall Snatch Game, it was weird that only one queen won when there were two distinct Snatch Games. Can you imagine if we saw Lucy interacting with Tim Gunn or interacting with Rosie O'Donnell from the other two queens? I think that would have really solidified who had the best Snatch Game of the week. Because this was a double Snatch Game, I think this would have been a great opportunity to have a double win with either Mistress or Marcia and Lucy. Moving on to another Snatch Game, I think there were a couple Snatch Games that were really too close to call. The closest Snatch Game across all the franchises, in my opinion, was All Stars 5 Snatch Game, where we had three queens who could have feasibly won the challenge. Alexis Mateo's Walter Mercado was amazing, as was Jujubee's Eartha Kitt, which is my personal favorite Snatch Game ever, and Shea Couleé's Flavor Flav, all within one season Snatch Game. This was a Snatch Game of Love, so these were already separated queens, and we could have had Walter Mercado and Flavor Flav or Eartha Kitt be the winners of that challenge. I know with this being All Stars 5 and there being the Rumocracy lip sync assassin twist that took place that season, which meant that we really could only have one queen winning the challenge. But if you actually look at the stats here, everyone besides Shea was in the bottom this episode because they wanted to have a bottom 5 where we maybe saw Shea send home a front runner like Jujubee or Ms. Cracker. Instead, she went the easy route, sent home India Farah, but this would have been a great case to have multiple queens win this challenge. Can you imagine a lip sync assassin plus two other queens lip syncing at the same time? That might be too much. What if we just dropped the lip sync assassin for a single week and said, hey, Juju and Shea, you're the winners, lip sync against each other, who's going to win? In any case, this is one of the closest Snatch Games and deserved a double win. The last Snatch Game that I think should be included on this double win list was from the most maligned season in the history of Drag Race, Global All-Stars. For Global All-Stars, we got the Snatch Game of Love back again, and this time we had a couple different queens that did great during that challenge. The winner went to Kitty Scott-Claus, which many people weren't happy about because they just weren't fans of Kitty that season. They thought she was being pushed by production and didn't think she deserved the win. I will say from watching that Snatch Game, she was the clear winner of that first Snatch Game, but the other queen that feasibly should have won as a double win was Pythia for her Zeus impression. We've had a lot of queens create characters, or at least make a new personality for a fictional character before. This was probably most famous with Trinity the Tuck on All Star 7 with her She-Devil. But this time we had Pythia become a douchey jock bro who was also gender ambiguous, and that's what made it work so well. And it was so unexpected because not many people thought that Pythia would be able to turn her Snatch Game around from what she was in her head about at the start. For that reason, and with this being a Snatch Game of Love, both Kitty and Pythia could have won this Snatch Game, and it would have made sense. And that's why that is on our double win list. Moving beyond Snatch Game to the other iconic performances that we have each season, the Rusical. The very first Rusical was Shade the Rusical from Season 6, and this is where I think could have been the most clear Rusical double win. We had two queens playing one role, which was Penny, the main character. We had Courtney Act, who was Good Penny at the start of the challenge, and then we had Adore Delano as Bad Penny at the end of the challenge. I think both of these queens could have feasibly won that challenge for their performance. They're both trained singers, so they both sounded amazing, and they acted great in the roles that they had. Courtney was the one that ended up getting the win here, but you could feasibly have said that Adore could have won the challenge as well. Even BenDeLaCreme had an amazing performance and could have been one of the winners, but I think because they were playing the same role, just as different parts of the same character, they both could have won that challenge. Before we had the Rusical on season 6, we had sort of a proto-Rusical the season before with the Black Swan Why It Gotta Be Black challenge, where we saw the queens acting out different parts of RuPaul's life in ballet. And I know they weren't singing here, but it was a very theatrical performance, just like a ballet would be. So I'm gonna call it a proto-Rusical here. Here we had, similar to the good penny, bad penny dichotomy, throwing out my $10 words here, we had Alyssa Edwards and Coco Montrese playing those two roles, representing the inner saboteur of RuPaul's life. Unlike Shade the Rusical, this time Bad Penny, or Bad RuPaul, won the challenge with Alyssa Edwards taking the win over Coco Montrese, who was playing good RuPaul. For this challenge, I know they wanted to play up the rivalry between those two because it had been the main storyline besides Rolaska Talks that entire season, so one or the other had to be given the win. But in this case, I think both of them did equally amazing in this performance, and both of them could have won the challenge. Can you imagine the drama of having both of them win the challenge? Then we wouldn't know who's the better dancer. And I think that would have been more exciting than what we got. Actually, no, what we got was pretty great. But still, both queens could have won this challenge. This could have been a double win. To wrap up this video, I do want to call out a couple international franchises. The first one I want to talk about here is Canada Season 3 with the Ruettes Challenge. For this challenge, the queens had to choreograph a lip sync where they both danced to the same number and then were performing at the same time. They were split up into groups of 2, and at the end of the day, only one queen won this challenge, Jada Shada Hudson. Jada and Irma put together a lip sync to Peanut Butter by RuPaul, and they both did a great job. They fed off each other and played to each other's strengths. Knowing that both of them weren't dancers, they were still able to put together a fun, campy performance. I don't know why Jada was chosen as the winner, probably because they wanted to push her as one of the frontrunners of the season, just like they did in that finale. But at the end of the day, this was a team challenge with 2 queens together. I don't know why they chose to split them in this case. This was very clearly a double win and would have given Irma some much needed validation on this season. I'm going to end this video with something that's bigger than an individual challenge. And I know this is breaking the rules of whatever my rules were at the start of this video, but I don't care because this is my channel. The last time that I think there should have been a double win on Drag Race was from Series 4 of the UK when Danny Beard and Cheddar Gorgeous were almost identical track records, almost identical performance throughout the season, and it should have been a double win for the season. Both Cheddar and Danny represented different types of drag. Cheddar was avant-garde and fashion, while Danny Beard was campy with her looks but amazing in the comedy challenges. I think both of these queens had large fan support, and either one winning would have been an okay end for UK4. But the best ending that we could have hoped for on that season, and one of the only times when I think there really should have been a double crowning, was on this season when there were only these 2 queens who could have won the crown and deserved to win the crown. So that's where I'm going to end my list. I know this isn't a challenge, but this is a chase where there should have been 2 winners. And there we have it. These were 9 times that I think there should have been a double win on Drag Race. Let me know in the comments if you think there were any other challenges that could have fit this category, and stay tuned for more stuff here on Wild Spear.